The Battle of Ban Houei Sane was a battle of the Vietnam War that began on the night of the 23rd of January 1968, when the 24th Regiment of the People's Army of Vietnam 304th Division overran the small Laotian Army outpost at Ban Houei Sane. The fighting at Ban Houei Sane was one in a series of battles fought between Communist and Allied forces during the Tet Offensive. The small outpost, defended by the personnel of the 33rd Elephant Battalion, was attacked and overwhelmed by the vastly superior PAVN and the PT-76 light tanks. The failure of the 33rd Elephant Battalion to defend their outpost at Ban Houei Sane would have negative consequences only a few weeks later, when the PAVN would strike again at Lang Vei. Background: during the First Indochina War, the Viet Minh constructed a pathway in neighboring Laos in order to transport vital military supplies to southern Vietnam. Over time, that pathway, now known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail, grew in importance as the government of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam sought to topple the rival government in the south, the Republic of Vietnam. In the late 1950s, the Ho Chi Minh Trail was expanded to support the Viet Cong's increasing military activities in southern Vietnam. To protect this vital lifeline, North Vietnamese forces were deployed to take control of various areas in eastern Laos adjacent to the demilitarized zone. The increasing communist activities in those parts of Laos did not go unnoticed, as the governments of South Vietnam and Laos began working together to establish a small outpost at Ban Houei Sane for the purpose of monitoring communist movements in 1959. In April 1961, the newly created 33rd Elephant Battalion of the Royal Laotian Army arrived at Ban Houei Sane, after it was forced to retreat from Chaphon by North Vietnamese and Pathet Lao forces. At Ban Houei Sane, the Laotians constructed new defensive positions with assistance from the Army of the Republic of Vietnam's 1st Infantry Division. 1 year later, BV-33 began monitoring North Vietnamese movements along the Vietnam-Laotian border. Battle. By the mid-1960s, when U.S. military forces increased the presence in South Vietnam, the Laotian units at Ban Houei Sane also detected increasing North Vietnamese movement along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Towards the end of December 1967, 6,000 trucks carrying supplies for communist forces in southern Vietnam were detected moving down the trail. The tremendous build-up came as a result of North Vietnam's decision to launch an all-out attack on Allied forces during the Tet celebrations. In order to lure American combat units away from the major cities, the North Vietnamese High Command decided to launch the first strike on 21 January 1968. The PAVN began their attacks on the Khe Sanh combat base, where 6,000 U.S. Marines were stationed. As part of that major effort, General Tran Quai Hai made the decision to knock out the small outpost of Ban Houei Sane once and for all. The Royal Laotian Army's 33rd Elephant Battalion were considered an important tool in the Allies' intelligence-gathering effort. On the night of the 23rd of January 1968, the PAVN 24th Regiment struck the defenders of Ban Houei Sane from 3 directions. Initially, the assault was spearheaded by the 324th Battalion with the 198th Armored Battalion in support, but the first assault wave was delayed for various reasons. Firstly, PAVN infantry and armored corps lacked the experience in combined operations. Secondly, the local terrain posed many difficulties for the tank crews, causing the PT-76 light tanks to bog down attempting to across the stream. By 6 o'clock, Colonel Le Congfei ordered his troops to advance on Ban Houei Sane despite the delays of the 198th Armored Battalion. As PAVN units moved towards the Laotian outpost, the PT-76s of the 198th Battalion turned up, causing much confusion among the defenders. On the day the PAVN launched their attacks, the weather was poor for aerial operations. As PAVN engineers blew up Laotian obstacles, there was little that U.S. forward air controllers could do to stop their advances. Ground targets could not be identified. After 3 hours of fighting, the Laotian commander, Lieutenant Colonel Lang Vei informed the U.S. forward air controllers that all Laotian positions had been overwhelmed and that they would abandon the outpost. At that point, the Laotian commander requested assistance from the CIDG camp at Lang Vei to help evacuate his soldiers and the families. However, assistance from Lang Vei would never arrive, so the soldiers of BV-33 and more than 2,000 civilian refugees made their way eastward along Route 9, approaching the South Vietnamese border. On the 24th of January, the survivors of the Ban Houei Sane battle and the families reached the Lang Vei CIDG camp. Initially, the military personnel at Lang Vei treated the Laotian refugees with caution, but they were finally given assistance when the Lang Vei camp commander allowed the Laotians to take up positions in the nearby Lang Vei village. The next target, for Captain Frank C. Willoughby, commander of the Lang Vei CIDG camp, the arrival of the Laotian refugees also brought some disturbing development on the battlefield. For the first time, the PAVN had deployed tanks in battle, and it was only 15 kilometers away from Lang Vei. Fearing a repeat of the deadly PAVN attacks, BV-33 soldiers were allowed to assist local forces by conducting patrols around the CIDG camp. As the Laotians settled down in Lang Vei, the U.S. Air Force conducted airstrikes targeting the Ban Houei Sane airfield to prevent the North Vietnamese from utilizing the airfield for operations against Khe San. On the 30th of January, Captain Willoughby's fears were confirmed when a North Vietnamese soldier defected to the Special Forces at Lang Vei, and informed them of the whereabouts of the North Vietnamese 304th Division. On the 6th of February 1968, the North Vietnamese struck Lang Vei,